fire marshal arrives on scene. They find no active alarm system in our portion of the building, which is another red flag. They then find the sprinkler riser for the entire building in the area and no water pressure. He then condemned the entire building. So basically, they wouldn't let us out of the building because we signed a lease, even though they never delivered a building in any semblance of working order. I called the building inspector and got them smoked, who then called the fire marshal, who then condemned the entire building. They are still trying to fight us over it, but we're pushing them for not only refunding our deposit and the rent, which they've already done, but for the time spent moving the gear in and out and all the wiring. Now, our lawyer says that they don't have a leg to stand on, and he's happy for them to pay his fees as well. Okay, my friends, first off, that sounded like a horrendous 5 days of being inside a building with no AC. You guys know how I love reading stories about shady landlords getting their just desserts. Now, guys, having the building condemned isn't enough. The landlord deserves to have all of his property taken away. Doing this without a permit and not being up to fire code is literally putting people in danger. Like, if he does this to commercial buildings, who knows what this guy does to people who rent his houses, condos, apartments, or whatever.
Yes? No cap? No mess. Just grab and squeeze. Try Johnny.
Problems, such as constant harassment by teachers and security about my being in the halls during class time, and why was my cousin out too? These first two were annoying, but easy enough to deal with. Now the real issue was the elevator. I was told multiple times that for security issues I could not have a personal key, due to it sharing the same functionality with the interior door keys. I would have never had any issues with this, as I was told there would always be someone on the same floor as my classes to open the elevator for me. This, of course, was untrue about 75% of the time. The so I did one of the stupidest things I could have attempted and tried to use the stairs. Now, for context, I was not on crutches. I was on a full-blown walker. About halfway down, I fell hard. One of my friends found me, got someone to help pick me up, and carried me to the office. When getting to the office, they managed to get me to calm down enough to give them my mom's phone number. Now, my mom is quite hot-tempered, but can keep a level head normally. When she heard that I fell, she was there in record time. When she got there, she immediately asked what happened. I told her that I was sick and tired of missing lunch from waiting for someone to open the elevator, so I tried to use the stairs. And that was a big mistake, as that set off a SAR bomb sized explosive. She immediately turns around not suitable for most adults to hear, let alone the kids. And when the VP made an offhand remark about my condition, she physically went after the VP and was swarmed by local sheriffs that provided security for the school. We were escorted out, and after looking at the file and realizing my cousin and I had the same addresses, they figured out that I didn't actually live there. Now, my grandmother's address was listed for me, as she looked after me after I left school up until around 8 p.m. She was also raising my cousin after an issue between her and my aunt. They used this as grounds to expel me, as I was out of the school district, and then told her I can be some other school's problem now. I was then enrolled at the school near my house, and had to have yet another surgery to repair the damage that was done as the result of my fall, and redo the work of the previous procedure. I had gotten multiple statements from teachers, as well as my doctors, who had won multiple cases against our school board, some of which went to the state Supreme Court, and he told us he would take our case pro bono. He was getting tired of going against the board and thought a case like this would be what it took to try and fix their crap. So fast forward 9 months. I was walking out of the court with a settlement to cover all my procedures, as well as a written confirmation that the school would be going through a complete administrative overhaul, and that the principal and vice principal would be let go and have their administrative credentials revoked in our state. My friends, and that brings us to another end of our slash pro revenge. Guys, I hope you got your revenge fix for today, and thank you so much for coming to hang out with me and listening to the stories. If you enjoyed the stories today, do hit that like button, and if you missed yesterday's episode, a Karen harvests all of Opie's fruit trees in her orchard. So entitled. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love those. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the other stories as well, as there's 3 stories in this episode, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for future tales. Let's dive in. Now, my neighbor, let's call him Ron, and his wife, Sarah, have been like family to my wife and I for several years. Practically ever since we moved in across the street from them. The four of us were extremely tight. Our kids were the same age as theirs, and they're all good friends. We were one big family unit. We had dinner together a few times a week. We went on vacations together, and I truly saw him as a brother and my best friend. Speaking of the holidays, my wife and I hosted both of our families for both Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. And Ron and Sarah joined us for dinner on both holidays. So the text records show that the entire time they were at our house celebrating with our families, my wife and him were texting each other from across the room. They were pretty much doing that every time the four of us hung out. For months. And, all day, every day, just in general. But what really bothers me is the fact that they were doing it with Sarah and I right there. I then confronted my wife with the evidence, and she admitted that yes, she and Ron had fallen in love. And she says, "It just happened. I don't know how, but I love him, and I just don't feel anything for you anymore. I'm sorry." She told me that they had gone on a school district trip together. Something had happened in their hotel room, and things had quickly moved from there. She then explained, as I lay face down on the couch, unable to look at her, that they had already made plans to move out and divorce me and Sarah, and while they didn't plan to move in together and finding a way to break this to me and Sarah as gently as possible, because they were so very concerned for our well-being. Gee, thanks. Sarah and I are fairly certain that they weren't planning on telling us about this affair at all, and were simply going to discover their feelings for one another several months down the line, and they'd come up with another reason to divorce the two of us. My wife moved out 2 months ago. I was, and still am, utterly destroyed. I cry every day. I cried writing the first paragraph of the story just now. I worry nonstop about the impact on our kids. But I'm also not exactly a shrinking violet when I feel that I've been wrong. And in this case, I was objectively very, very wrong. So a couple of years ago, Ron ran for a Board of Education seat as a pretty extreme underdog. I helped him with his campaign materials and debate prep, and my wife, a well-known school district employee, this would come to court later, got the word out as fast as she could. Much to our surprise, he actually won in a squeaker, just by a few dozen votes. Being on the board became the center of Ron's world. He joined every committee that he could. This then turned into the foundation of his affair with my wife, as they were constantly going to school events and meetings together on evenings and weekends. Once I discovered the affair, my thoughts turned pretty quickly to revenge. And it occurred to me that an affair between a member of the Board of Education and an employee of the school district was at least bad politics and possibly violated district policy. Now, the thing that would make things far worse for them was that my wife was running for an open administrative position, and everybody knew that she was more or less guaranteed the job and the major pay raise that came with it. My wife had just finished her master's